Welcome to the very first episode of Election Watch 2024 as Namibia decides 2024. You are joined by Ashwyn, Mberi and Toivo Ndjebela, and over the next upcoming weeks, we're going to be making sure we keep you informed on the Namibian elections, even though the Americans are deciding today.
The Americans are deciding today, a very tight race.
Very tight race.
I mean, neither candidate even seem to be sure of the outcome. The polls, nothing is suggesting clearly who's going to win.
Definitely.
And I suppose for the world, that is what makes it very interesting. But if you are an American, you ought to be very worried because there's no particular assurance for your candidate.
100%. I would like to encourage America to take some example from Africa. But essentially, just to take you through what we'll be doing here on Election Watch, we're going to be giving you updates on elections as well as election authorities. We're going to be making sure that you don't miss anything from the Electoral Commission of Namibia. We'll also be bringing you some opinion pieces and interviews, and very important, some statistics. The numbers always matter, and with elections, the numbers are particularly what we are paying attention to, Toivo.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a very important platform ahead of November 27. We have really put a lot of work in coming up with this particular show. We want to make it as interactive as possible.
100%.
So that people really appreciate the true nature of what is going to happen, you know, the status of our country, the direction that we're heading into, where we are coming from, and in terms of statistics, all of those things are going to matter a lot. So I just wanted to share here, Ashwyn, a bit of what has happened globally so far.
Yes.
Because this was the number of elections that were held in the world this year.
Tons of them.
Tons of them, both in Africa and elsewhere. So
100%.
I want to just ask to see if we can venture into some of these numbers first. You can see where the elections have taken place, coded, of course, how many took place in the first quarter of the year, how many took place in the second, and now, of course, we are in the fourth quarter, and we are seeing that essentially the entire world, was it Argentina, for example, that had theirs? When Milei, what is the gentleman's name?
The
man
with the hair.
How he won. He won the UK had theirs.
Steinmeier is in, and that was been a strong victory for Labour, considering I think it was about 12 years without any sniffling of power.
Yeah, absolutely. But closer to home, I mean, for example, the young chap in, is it in Senegal?
Senegal, yes. He got it done quite recently. That was actually another wave with regards to African elections. Especially these days, you'll find that when there's a young president in Africa, that's the first reason to celebrate before we even get into the issues. And Senegal managed to do that. We're going to see how it goes because he has to now set up the next election. He had to, dissolve some entities in order to be able to expedite the next election. So we'll definitely see how that goes. But we're talking about 16 elections across the African continent, not to mention the ones that happened in our region quite recently. But before we get into that, let's just talk a little bit more. So Chad elected its leadership in May, Madagascar, as well as South Africa. I mean, we cannot forget South Africa. That election was pivotal because it changed the political landscape. ANC having to share power with this diametrically opposed Democratic Alliance, and we saw the ripple effect. MK securing one of the EFF leaders, EFF itself losing some votes to MK because a lot of the people who were supporting EFF were supporting an interim, waiting for Jacob Zuma to have a platform, and so perhaps some people might call that an ethnic vote, but ultimately KwaZulu-Natal resoundingly went with MK, and of course President Cyril Ramaphosa right now currently battling with the DA with different issues like Ukraine, where it seemed like South Africa had one defined positions from Palestine to Ukraine. But now when you're an alliance, when you're a government of unity, it's no longer just your voice that counts. Yes, indeed. South Sudan will choose in December, which is going to be very interesting. Just after the Namibian elections, we're also looking at Somaliland. There's a big issue that side about Somalia, Somaliland, Ethiopia. This election is going to potentially decide or escalate some real tense border disputes that they have on that side, particularly with regards to the recognizing of Somaliland as a nation, which isn't done by most of the countries in the world. So we'll be seeing how that one goes. But let's bring it down to SADC, because some very significant elections have happened, and the significance is there is a connection. These are liberation movements. The elections didn't go the same way for everybody. We'll start with Mozambique.
Yeah.
So Mozambique, the Frelimo party, been in power since 1975, if I'm not mistaken, since the 70s. Daniel Chapo coming in for the Frelimo party that's in Mozambique. And there were issues and there are issues, because currently Mozambicans are in the streets. And part of the reason that happened was, one of them was President Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe, before the announcement of the election result in Mozambique, had stated that Frelimo had won. They congratulated them on their win. And that's part of the reasons why Mozambicans are feeling like it wasn't free and fair.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it was a very, very controversial election. I can understand why so many people are marching on the streets. A lot of violence happening on the streets. There's been some huge incidents, like a lawyer aligned to the opposition who was shot. I think 25 bullets were put in his car.
Pure assassination.
Yeah. So, I mean, because just when you think that Africa has, because when you spoke about 16
countries, 16 nations,
it's like, okay, it's a new dispensation in Africa now.
Yes.
We appreciate the value of allowing people to decide who they want them to lead and whatnot. And then, as you just accept that sort of new reality, then things like that happen.
Something is swept under the rug. Speaking though of these processes, the only party right now that I would say is a better loser than ANC would be the BDP in Botswana, because what a loss. 1966, 58 years gone.
That was bad, because I mean, for me, I'm saying, look, it's one thing to lose power in the manner that ANC did. You're still the highest. You're
still the opposite. You're still top two.
Yes. No, just really you're above everybody else.
Yes.
But just not enough to be declared a winner.
Yes.
If it's worse, you expect at least now that you slip to number two.
Yes.
In Botswana, among the 4 contestants, BDP became the last one.
The last one. They're not official opposition.
Unbelievable. I've never seen anything like that.
I believe your people say Kanave.
Exactly.
It was unbelievable. I mean, and to me, that's kind of what, maybe a little nervous, because this is a party that's got its tenterhooks well within the system. There was a strong chance that BDP could have reacted very differently. But in 24 hours, the new president was sworn in, Duma Boko. And speaking of Duma Boko, we have our correspondent in Botswana, Rorisang Mohojwe, who gave us just a little bit of a snippet about the president in the 2019 election. And this one, have a look.
In 2019, Duma Boko, people felt like he was too arrogant. He did not care for the interests of the people, but rather for himself and also the party that he was leading. But in 2024, as they campaigned, he was a little bit more humble, and he said, I have heard you and I have outgrown whatever character that I was in, and now I am just a humble servant, and I'm here for the nation. And this is one of the Botswana believes so much in humility and a principle that we call both, which is about togetherness and just having that humility within you. So really, I think that is one of the main factors that they thought that maybe Duma Boko could actually look out for the interests of the general public at large.
Thank you, Rory Sang. So that's Duma Boko, 2019. Botswana felt he was a little prideful then. You can see similarities between that and the last time prior to this that Hakainde Hichilema ran in Zambia. There was a statement made which didn't fall well with the people onto their ears. And at that time they said this is not happening. He comes back, he's humble, he's representing the people. And an interesting fact is that he was formerly of the Botswana National Front, which was more of a communist party. He was leaning towards communism. system. Now he's taken more of a central stance. This is with the umbrella for democratic change. The victory was immense. Ian Khama would have had something to do with this. So I would say Ian Khama had something to do with the loss, with the victory. Mnangagwa had something to do with the loss.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you know this, in Zimbabwe, the president of Zimbabwe had also outlined support for BDP in Botswana. And because of the way elections have been held in Zimbabwe, and we're talking about SADC itself not fully giving that stamp of approval after elections, we know that there's enough questions being raised from that electoral system, which may breed mistrust in other systems. And that's what happened in Botswana, to the point that the Zimbabwean embassy in Botswana had to ask Zimbabweans to be very careful around elections, about how they move around, because of the rhetoric that was happening there. And then on the other side of the coin, Ian Khama, generational president, who had been booted out by the man he brought into the BDP. When he went back to Botswana just about a month before elections, he was received like a king.
Absolutely. I mean, I saw the man has been in exile for so long, and he's been very vocal against President Masisi, and how determined he was actually to see him out of power. He said to the people of Botswana, I made a mistake by parachuting this man into power, and I will do everything in my power to get him removed.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
It was so prophetic that he's been talking like that, returned to the country recently from exile, and ahead of the elections. Don't know what he was up to. You remember, this man is a military man, he's an intelligence operative in his past life. I don't know whether that whole experience came in handy for him this time around, because he definitely is linked to what transpired now. Of course, he has his own party now also. Backing one of the parties. I think that party became third. But the fact that Masisi lost, people are saying that among all those things is also
Khama.
Khama.
Yes.
And just on that, Ashwyn, what surprised me also about what transpired in Botswana is that they seemed to have been doing very well as a country.
Yes.
Pretty fairly governed.
Yes.
Did very good things with the beers and that
the diamonds,
whole thing.
100%.
And they're not really one of the worst countries around in town. So I never understood. But I suppose the Botswana people have set themselves a very high standard.
They've created a standard. They're saying it's no longer about how little you can mess up. It's about how well you can propel us forward. And I think they really made a decision along those lines. And Namibia will be deciding 2024 on the 27th of November. After this break, we're going to talk about the 2014 elections in comparison to the 2019 elections. And of course, what we're looking forward to, D-Day, 27 November. All right, so as you can see, Toivo is on the tablet, which means one thing and one thing only. It's time for us to look at the numbers, the statistics of previous elections in Namibia as we head into this election on the 27th of November 2024 as hashtag Namibia Decides 2024. Do use that hashtag. Be a part of the conversation. We want to know what you think. And we certainly are looking forward to seeing Namibia practicing their democracy. Toivo, the stats.
Yeah, so 2014 was historic in our election, because it was Hage Geingob as a candidate of Swapo at the time absolutely smashed the records, gaining just under 87% of the presidential election, and Swapo also got, for the first time, more than 80%. I think it was 84% in that election. The sense, of course, was we can deny it all we want, but there was this also strong element. Of course, he was a very well-educated man,
100%.
PhD holder, a veteran administrator, having served as prime minister twice. And there was also an element also of perhaps an ethnic element where people also felt that, because I remember, for example, parties like UDF, which is predominantly a Damara party, urging their members to vote, to make sure that for the presidential election, they rally behind Hage Geingob.
Wow.
There were several other political parties, opposition parties, that said, let's just rally behind this man, because there was also this element to say, look, maybe the first 3 presidents are from one ethnic group, and we just needed to make sure that this time around we elect someone else, and maybe see how that will affect other tribes in the country.
Yes.
So that happened. I just want to take an example. For example, we go back to the map,
Yeah, all right.
and look at the Commerce region, for example, where the elections, let me see here. Yeah, this is just Windhoek rural constituency where 10,000 people voted, and Swapo won 7,000, more than 7,000 of that vote, followed, of course, by, let me see, followed by RDP with 897,
And then DTA.
and then DTA, which of course became PDM these days. So you could see that it is by a stretch that Swapo was ahead in that election in Commerce. But let's look at Daveb constituency, for example, which is in the Erongo region. Swapo winning 1,200 votes of the 1,900 votes.
Wow.
So again, this speaks to what I was mentioning earlier, that there was also a tribal
Element
to say that, this is a predominantly Damara area. The candidate was Damara, and
it was simple as that.
It was simple as that. But even if you go to let me take Outapi, for example, which is very far in the Msat region, in the heart of Amboland, if you like, 18,000 registered voters, but 17,000, nearly 18,000 as a matter of fact.
My goodness.
Still Swapo won there. Huge numbers for Swapo in 2014 there. Let's look at the Zambezi region, for example, Kongola constituency, 3,300 votes cast, and out of those, 2,500 of them went to Swapo. Again, a huge number for the ruling party in 2014. So it gives you a sense at the time, because there's an analysis that came out just recently by Roland Brown from Serras Capital here in Windhoek, and he was talking about how economic performance has become so vital now in determining electoral results in Namibia. In the past, in the 90s and early 2000s, Swapo was still clinging on to its glorious
liberation heritage. Yes.
We brought you independence.
Yes.
You somehow owe us loyalty of some sort. But you could see during the Pohamba years, 2005 to 2010, to 2014, our economic performance was really strong.
Yes.
Back to back. So you could see that apart from the other factors that I mentioned, why Hage Geingob got so many votes, you could also see that that economic performance, his victory was coming on the back of a very strong performance by the ruling party as a government.
Yes.
So maybe it was a way to say, look, continue doing what you're doing. Economic growth is going very well. Socially, we are breathing very well. Just continue. So that happened. But let's now go back. Let's now go to the results of 2019. This is the National Assembly election in the following year.
Yes.
And this is the year that Swapo got really shook out of its boots.
Oh, definitely.
Let's look, for example, at Windhoek rural constituency. In 2019.
My goodness.
Swapo got 618, 6,000,
6,000, yeah.
yeah, 6,800 votes. But if you look, for example, at PDM, which was second at 4,000, it's very close in the context of the history of
Definitely.
elections in Namibia.
Yes.
And so you could see, and these are the years that our performance as a country economically was no longer very appetizing. It was really the first term of President Gengob was really bad. I mean, a lot of reasons have been used: his drought, his recession. Of course, COVID only happened a year later, so it didn't have any bearing on this.
Yes, indeed.
But there was just a great dissatisfaction in the country. So that is Commerce region.
Yeah.
If you take Walvis Bay, for example,
Yes.
unbelievable. Swapo having 5,900 votes, and PDM is just behind them,
Just
at
behind
also 5,000 something.
And I must point out that, you know, the other parties as well had managed to garner much more than the previous election. I was looking at NEFF in Windhoek Rural. I believe in the previous election they had just 5 votes. And in 2019 they had over 200. In Walvis Bay they were in 2 digits, just about anywhere else they were. And now you're seeing more from them. But of course PDM, neck and neck with the generational Swapo, which was a strong message from Namibians.
Absolutely. Then we can look quickly in Maheke region. You can take Oshombinde, for example. Oshombinde, where of course Swapo did much better here, 900 votes, and the closest, which is PDM, only had 300 votes. So you had those small dynamics there. Marintal in the south. Marintal rural. Let's see what we can get out of Marintal here. Oh yes, Swapo getting 1,100 votes there compared to
LPM would have been the next strongest one there, 732.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very strong in the south. LPM.
Yeah.
Yes.
And LPM was only participating in this election for the first time.
For the first time,
having been created in 2017.
Yes.
Let's look at the presidential election of 2019. That was National Assembly that we looked at.
Yes.
This is now when Swapo had essentially 2 candidates.
Yes.
So Pandoleni Tula says he's an independent. He was of course an independent, but he was still a member of Swapo Party. That was prior to his expulsion. So you look at Windhoek rural constituency, where he actually, Itula, beat Gengob.
Well, about close to 2,000 votes. My goodness.
Yes.
It really was quite the run for him.
It's unbelievable that Gengob was losing in places like Windhoek here. You look at Walvis Bay and you see again Gengob lost by
close to 6,000 votes, or at least over 5,000, and that was a dominating performance by Itula.
Absolutely. So we don't know whether these factors will again play themselves out this time around, but I'll just see if I can get one last constituency here. So if you look at places like Okakarara here, of course, Gengob dominated. No, as a matter of fact, Venani.
Yes. It was
Muinyangwe.
And then Venani. That's interesting because Swapo was 3rd there.
Yeah, of course.
Gengob in particular, at least there.
Yeah, Okakarara, of course, historically is a Nodo stronghold.
Yes.
So Esther Muinyangwe winning here was expected. Venani also the benefiting from that ethnic element, if you like.
Yes.
Gengob becoming only 3rd. Of course, Itula was battered in that constituency. Those, my friend, are it's just a snippet of how the elections the 2019 elections
Transpired,
went.
yes, indeed.
So the big question, of course, this year is whether the same tape will replay itself, or we are going to see something radically different from what we saw in 2019.
Yes, I mean, we know that Itula, because he's run for president before, he's certainly going to be feeling a little confident. Mena Tumbo is going to have to rest on that Swapo legacy. Her own legacy, it's clean, it's airtight. We don't know if it's politically appealing. We know age is a question. There were some concerns about her health quite recently. Landless People's Movement and NEFF, it's really going to be seeing, like, can they go outside of their core support base, because the simple fact of the matter is the most populous demographic is the Awambo people, and so once you've covered your core support base, how much are you doing to garner that vote? Because you're not becoming president if you don't have that vote. It's not to say it's the most essential vote, not by any means. We're just talking numbers here.
Yes.
We're just talking numbers. That's the work you have to do on the ground. So we'll definitely be checking that out. But what's very important is to know the manifestos of each and every one of these political parties, and we have a way that you can do so. All you have to do is save this number on your WhatsApp: 085-725-6231, 085-725-6231. Here's a little clip on how you can check out the manifestos. So that's how you can check out each of the parties' manifestos. We'll obviously go through them on Election Watch with Toivo, Ndjebela and Ashwyn. Mberi will have different figures and personalities come through to try and lend more of a voice to Namibia's democratic process as we head over to hashtag Namibia Decides 2024. From the one and only Toivo Ndjebela and myself, Ashwyn Mberi. See you next week.